Hello and welcome to our video on helping your child read at home. My name is James Wood. I'm the Deputy Head here at Ruskin and also the Curriculum Leader. And one of the things that we're very conscious of with the era of the COVID pandemic is that the normal opportunities we have had for parents to come into school and do different workshops for reading and writing and things like that, we haven't been able to do. So some of the feedback that we received from Parents Evening was that parents were really keen on being able to support their child read at home and to understand how we teach reading at Ruskin here. So this video, it won't be very long, it'll be quite brief. We'll go through all the things we do in terms of our teaching children how to read, and then also some ideas to how you can help support reading at home. So one of the first things we need to establish is just how important reading is for your child's development, both in school and when they move beyond to secondary and further than that. Now, we at Ruskin have a mantra that first we teach children how to read and then they read to learn. So essentially, if they can't do that first bit and if they are not sophisticated readers, it holds them back not just in English but across the curriculum. So reading really is that one subject that we teach at school that has supremacy across everything else we do. It's our number one focus for children here. So why we're reaching out to you in this video is that children's learning, especially with reading, doesn't just happen during the hours when they're at school. We obviously focus on it a lot and we prioritise it. But there's been research done about the amount of progress that children can make when they read at home, and the reading at home is matched to the reading they're doing at school. And for the Education Endowment Foundation have found that it can make up to 9 months extra progress on child's development, which is obviously of really, really huge importance in an era when children have been off school for a while with the COVID pandemic and things like that. The simplest way to think about how children develop in reading is to have a look at this model here, the simple view of reading. So what this does is it points out that reading is actually a twofold process. So it's the word recognition in the first place, and then how that links in to language comprehension and how children understand what they've read. So I'm going to go through a few strategies that we use at school that you could do at home to help both with the decoding of simple words and looking at how children build fluency, and then also when they become more sophisticated, thinking about how you can aid their comprehension of a text. As a school, we've also recently invested in a new phonics scheme, which is specifically designed to help children who may not, through different reasons for absence and learning from home, been able to fully grasp phonics in Key Stage 1. So what we've got there is we have systematic synthetic phonics taught as a whole class for children in Year 3, with those children who have passed that phonics screen being pushed to do comprehension lessons. And then we have a comprehensive programme of interventions for the rest of the years 4, 5 and 6, where specific children are taught one-on-one with a TA to help plug those phonic gaps. With that in mind, you may have noticed when your child has brought a book home from school that they're banded different colours. Now, this isn't an exact science, and the way that we band these books depends on both the difficulty of the content and the volume of the books themselves, so the amount of words in them. In addition to that, if your child is someone who is still grasping phonics, you may also receive a fully phonically decodable book from home, which practices the sound that they've been learning that week. That's obviously to reinforce what's been taught at school and for children to be able to practice with parents at home. What we'll endeavour to do with that, where possible, is that the TAs or teachers who are working with your child on those phonic sounds will write in their reading record which sounds they are learning and which time. So you'll be able to support at home and you'll be aware of what sort of things they've been learning. When we talk about developing children's reading fluency, this can be broken down into 3 main stages. The first one being accuracy, making sure children are reading the words correctly. So this includes accurate decoding of the different sounds and also the word recognition, so what the words mean. The next stage is when children become more confident and become more accurate is the automaticity. So that's them being able to read those words automatically without them having to segment and blend in their head. Now this enables them to read at an appropriate speed. Lastly, and what we're going to come on to talk about a little bit more, is prosody, which is reading with appropriate stress and intonation. So this is a really crucial part in terms of reading accuracy and comprehension. And also it does make sure that children are engaged with what they're reading and they've understood the certain tone of voice that maybe a character speaks in, for example. There are a number of practical strategies that can help with developing reading accuracy, and I'll go through a few of them now. Now, it may be entirely appropriate when you're reading a new text with a child, so for example this one, for you to read the text to them first. It may be that you read through and just at the start they're looking at the images and they're thinking, well, I wonder what's going on in this story. Now this one's clearly about a dragon and look what he's doing. The dog gets in some trouble with the dragon here. And have that dialogue with your child while you're reading. And it might be that, as I said, you read through first, so they've got the understanding and you've gone through some tricky words with them, and then you give them the chance to read it. But what's really important is that you focus on that accuracy and make sure they are segmenting those sounds that they know and they are blending them together. And once we build on that, we can start thinking about using different voices for different characters, putting emphasis on different punctuation and things that bring the book alive, which hopefully when you've read it to them, you've been able to show and you've been able to model. If we refer back to our simple view of reading, what we can say is that these strategies help your child move across the axis in terms of word recognition. And once they've become confident and they've developed that automaticity, then we can start to build on the comprehension and the understanding of author's intentions. Now, this is typically what we'd start to introduce in years 3 and 4 and then really build on in years 5 and 6. One of the things that's really important for children to know is for them to understand which reading skill they're developing at which point. And because of this, we've brought into a new scheme called Reading Vipers. And each of these Vipers stands for something that aids children with their comprehension. So these Viper skills are as follows: vocabulary, inference, making predictions, explaining, retrieving, and lastly, summarising a text and maybe comparing one text to another. The bedrock of good reading comprehension has to be vocabulary. It really is that one passport that our children need to develop for future success, because obviously if they understand what they've read and they understand the words and can start to use them, that has a lot of knock-on effects in terms of their understanding of other subjects. So there are a number of things that you can do to help your child understand certain words. Perhaps these question stems might help you at home. You might ask them, what do these words suggest about a character, a setting, a mood? You might get them to pick out key words in a text. You might get them to find a word in a text and think about a synonym, so a word that means the same. Or you might get them to find a word that's closest in meaning to another word. All of these things, and then using that language at home, really does help cement that vocabulary for your children. Children naturally tend to infer things in the world around them all the time. They can infer people's moods, they can infer different meanings in words that you say, from the tone of voice that you say it, and different things like that. And that's no different from how they're studying inference in reading. So some questions you might want to ask when you're reading is, how do these words make you feel? What about it suggests that this character is X? Or how do you know that this person is thinking Y? You might even think back to the voices that characters use. Why do you think a character would use a stern voice? What do you think it means that he said that quietly or he whispered? All those kind of questions really make your child start to think a bit more in depth about what it is to be an author and how best to communicate how a character or a person is feeling. Relatively easy way of asking your child to engage with the book is to get them to make a prediction and then to think about the justification for why they think that. So thinking about what a text is going to be about, judging it from its cover, thinking about what's happening now but what will happen next, and then thinking about, okay, does the choice of setting affect what's going to happen here, there or everywhere? This then builds into them being able to explain more generally what's happened in a text and to think about how the author has engaged a reader or an audience. To do this, they'll also need to be able to retrieve key facts, and it might be worth asking them for key bits of information to see if they can find that within a page of a text. Lastly, one really important thing and skill that they can develop is to be able to summarise what's happened. Now, this doesn't have to be a formal sort of sit down, tell me what's happened in the story, but it could be a conversation. You could be talking about, oh, what does this remind you of? Have we seen a film where there are similar characters? Is that character like someone that you know in a TV show or even a computer game? And just asking those simple questions will help your child engage with what the text has been about and to start to make those links between different types of text and different genres. To support parents with this at home, I've made one of these bookmarks for each child in the school which has the Vipers acronym on there and then some example questions that you could ask them for each section. So questions for vocabulary, for inference, predictions, explanations, retrieval and summary. So hopefully you'll find this useful when you're going through to think, okay, which of these questions could I ask to see if they've developed this skill or not. As with previous years, we've asked you to record what your child has read in their reading records, and children will be recording in these at school as well. So there's a section there for general comments that you could put down. These don't have to be too large, but you could discuss the skill that you've been working on. So it might be that you went through and discussed what a certain word meant, or that you made a prediction part. And then we're going to ask our teachers or TAs as well to comment in the reading records and to let you know which skills we've been developing at school so you can support at home as well. Okay, if you've got this far in the video, thank you, you've got to the end. Once again, I apologise that this couldn't be in person as we normally would do, but the situation wouldn't allow us to have mass gatherings in the hall. But if you have any questions about what we've gone through, if there's anything that doesn't quite sit with you or doesn't sound quite right, please feel free to email the office and it'll go through to me or Mr. Beadnell and we'll be able to help you with your queries. Thanks once again for your continued support, and we really, really hope we can make this year one to really count for your child in terms of their reading development. Thank you.